Hi there, friends. Welcome to episode 49 of Knit Talk with a Tech Editor. I'm Megan of the Unapologetic Knitter, and I'm a tech editor. Today we are going to talk about short rows one more time. But for those of you who have been asking about Moo and Callie, stick around to the end of the video. I've got a little update for you. But for those who are here for knitting, let's jump right in. In episodes 43 and 46 of this podcast, we looked at how to add short row shaping to the top or bottom of a yoked sweater when they're not included in the pattern. In each of those videos, I discussed how to add those short rows relative to the beginning of round marker being located at the center back of the sweater. But not all designs have the marker located at the center back. Very often, especially in a colorwork yoke sweater, you're going to find them offset. They're usually located at what would be the back shoulder of the sweater. So how do we find where our starting point of our short rows is, or maybe what's a better way to say that? How do we find out what that first row of our short rows should be so we can make sure they're centered over the back of the sweater? That's what we're going to look at. So we're going to do a quick exercise in today's video that you can break down and do on your own based on your gauge. But I'd like to make it clear that today's exercise is kind of an exercise in assumptions. Educated assumptions, but still assumptions. The percentage method of short row shaping that we've previously discussed can still be used even if the beginning of round isn't at the center back of the sweater. We just have to do a bit of work to figure out what our center starting point would be. In this example, let's imagine that our beginning of round marker is at the back of the left sleeve as you would wear it. It's the green dot on this example. We need to figure out how many stitches there are between this existing beginning of round and our center back, which is unknown, where we want to center our short rows. To do this, we need to make some educated assumptions about our sleeve placements. Any garment that has sleeves will have sleeves of identical size. And for most garments, the front and back of the garment will be equidistant from each other. Basically, the same number of stitches will be between the back of the sleeves as there are between the front of the sleeves. Let's assume that we've cast on 96 stitches for a neckline and our project gauge is 20 stitches equals 4 inches or 10 centimeters. So the educated assumption that we're going to make is that the top of a sleeve, whether you have the markers in place or not, is roughly 2 inches or 5 centimeters. While this number may vary slightly from garment to garment, we do have to make some guesses since we don't have markers showing us where the sleeves are. So if we assume that the top of the sleeve is roughly 2 inches or 5 centimeters, and our project gauge is 20 stitches equals 4 inches or 10 centimeters, we know that the top of the sleeve is going to be 10 stitches wide. This is the space between the two sets of dashed lines. Since we'll have 2 sleeves on the garment, and we know that the 2 sleeves have to be the same size, we know that we will use a total of 20 stitches for our sleeves, 10 for each top of sleeve. Since we have 20 stitches for our sleeves and we cast on a total of 96 stitches, that leaves us with 76 body stitches. Since most garments are designed to have the front and back be the same width, we'll divide our remaining 76 stitches by 2, which means we should have 36 stitches for each front and back. Last but not least, now that we have our front and back stitch counts determined, we can figure out the center back location, dividing our 38 back stitches by 2. So to begin your short rows based on the percentage method in episodes 43 or 46, you can knit to this center back location. In our case, it will be 19 stitches or half of 38. Place a marker to temporarily indicate this center point, and then begin your short rows at the center back. So the percentage method that we discussed in our previous episodes can now be used because we know what our center point is. It's between the 19th and the 20th stitch across the back of our garment, which is 38 stitches wide. Now, what if it turns out that your center or your cross back is an uneven number? Let's say instead of being nice and tidy where it's 38 stitches, it's 39 stitches. So instead of having a center point between two stitches, you will have a single center stitch. So you just want to add a marker on each side of that center stitch, or you can just clip right into the center stitch if you prefer. And just make sure that while you're working those percentage short rows, you're still working equidistant on each side of that center stitch. So to begin those short rows, you will knit to that center stitch or to the center point, and then begin your percentage shaping on each side. So today's episode was short and sweet, which is always kind of nice on a recording day. As I mentioned at the top of the episode, we have covered a couple of different concepts using short rows. So if you have found this video and have not already watched them, I've linked below to episodes 43, 44, and 46, where we talk about short row shaping at the top of a yoke, at the bottom of a yoke, and at the bottom of a sweater. So hopefully this covers the gamut of short row questions that you've had and you feel confident ready to add them to your garment. If you enjoyed today's video or learned something new, remember to hit that like button. And if you're new here and haven't already subscribed, or if you're not new here and you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing to the channel. It helps me help more knitters on their knitting journey. In 2 weeks, we are going to do a bit of a question roundup video. I've had several short questions or questions that could have shorter answers that won't make up a full episode. So I'm going to put those all into one. We're going to look a little bit more at yarn substitutions, yarn refreshing, and a little tiny bit more about short rows. So I hope you'll join me then to see if I cover your sweater. For those of you who had more questions about Moo and Callie, stick around after the sign off. I've got a little update for you. And for those of you who are not interested in my dogs, I get it. Thank you so much for joining me. I always appreciate spending time with you. Have a wonderful rest of your week and happy knitting. Hey folks, just a little update on Moo and Callie because a couple of folks have been asking how they've been doing. Little Callie here is doing just fine. It's been a unique week here. Alan has been away this week. He's up in Canada for a curling up bonspiel. And I think Callie's missing her cuddle buddy. Although she is definitely what we would consider my dog, she and Alan have been spending a lot more time bonding and cuddling at night, most especially. So she's been without him for a few nights. I know, baby. They have the dogs. Okay, enough. The dogs have their dental appointment scheduled for next week. And during it, Callie is going to be having an extra little bit of surgery done. Before she came to us, she had to get spayed because we adopted her from a rescue foundation, Saving Hope Rescue. I know I've spoken to you about them before. But at the same time that they did her spay, they found a mass on one of her mammary glands. So they did exploratory surgery as well as the spay, which required staples to hold it closed. Apparently, it's actually a really good way to help a dog heal from a surgery like that, the staples, that is. They're apparently very effective at holding everything together. However, it looks like the surgical team missed taking out one of the staples before they sent her to us. She had a little abscess a couple of months after she came to us. They thought it was likely a stitch because they also used stitches in addition to the staples, and everything cleared up. And then just about 2 weeks ago, we were giving her a little belly rub, and there's a staple very obviously on her belly. So it hasn't broken through the skin, and she doesn't seem to be in any discomfort, but we're going to have that taken out while we do her dental since she'll already be asleep. So that's little Callie, and I'll grab Moo here in just a second. So here is Moo Man. He is 2 years old this May, and as he gets older, he gets fluffier and fluffier. We did a DNA test on him, and it turns out he's got some Pomeranian in him, and you can see it. While you can't see his tail or his feet right now, he is so fluffy. And at the risk of sounding way sentimental, I can't bear to take him to the groomers to have them take it off because I absolutely love it. So every so often he gets a little tail trim and a little ear trim from Mom, but otherwise we just love his fluffiness. He's doing well-ish. He appears to have developed some seasonal allergies or potentially food allergies. We weren't sure which it was, so the vet has put him on prescription food that he absolutely detests, but he's also on some allergy meds that are hopefully going to help curb the issue. He was just licking a lot. He doesn't seem to have any dander issues. He's not scratching excessively, but he was licking his paws and unfortunately his back end a lot. So since making the change, he actually is doing a lot better, but he hates the food. So that's been a bit of a challenge. On top of Alan being away, he's not eating as much as I'd like him to, but he's not in any danger of he's not in any danger of starving. Let's put it that way. So he's been a unique dog. I know you're not here for dog talk. You're here for knitting talk. But if you're still sitting with me, you're interested in the dogs. So Moo and Callie are our third and fourth children. Peaches and Zoe, we adopted Peaches back in 2008, and then we adopted Zoe in 2011, and they were the two easiest dogs we've ever had. Short of their annual shots and their dental cleanings, we never had to go to the vet. I mean, they were just so, I don't know, just so unproblematic until the last 6 months of Zoe's life. We started to have issues with her heart, and that is unfortunately eventually what took her from us. And then Peaches survived cancer for over a year. So, there was just nothing. And this poor little man has been a going concern since the day we got him. But we love him desperately, and I really appreciate that you all ask about him and Callie and are interested in their lives. Trust me, they're doing just fine. Thanks so much for sticking around. I'm sure you'll see them again in another video. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and as always, happy knitting.